Hi, it's Alex Cosper at the American River for another SacTV.com Riverside chat. Today I want to talk about something that's close to home for many people, which is their computer. Used to be you were tied to a desk and you couldn't get to places like this with your computer. Just because they hadn't come up with portable computers yet, at least that were, workable and powerful. They hadn't done that until it seemed like the 2000s. You started getting cool laptops that could actually be your, office anywhere you go. It could have been the 1990s for some people, maybe even earlier, but seems to me that a lot of people started having laptops in the early 2000s, and that was right after the dot-com bubble, and there was a tech boom that was the bigger picture with that. Microsoft Windows and Apple Macintosh, of course, were the leaders in tech all along from the 90s on. Some might say 80s on. But there used to be a lot more hardware manufacturers and it was hard to say where the computer industry was going back in the 80s, whereas by the 90s you kind of saw that it was coming down to two main operating systems, Windows and Mac. Plus you had higher end stuff like IBM and Unix and the better, more industrial and commercial type computer systems. So now here we are in 2024. We're in the Windows/Mac world. For a while there, Apple was the leading company in the world as far as its stock price valuation or its market cap in relation to other tech companies like Microsoft. For a while, the day Steve Jobs died, and that was 2011. He died in October 2011. The day he died, he took Apple to #1 market cap in the world, beating ExxonMobil, which had held that position for decades, since the 80s. So a tech company knocking off an oil company, that was a radical change in 2011. Microsoft had not accomplished that. So, Microsoft kind of fell into the shadow of Apple for a while. And then Steve Jobs, his death, along with Bill Gates leaving Microsoft eventually and just letting others run it. You basically have two kind of new companies now, two companies that almost mirrored each other in many ways. But Microsoft has taken the lead recently as the top most valuable company in the world, and Apple has been #2. And Apple did not help its cause today, May 10th, 2024, when it had to apologize for an ad it created for its new iPad, in which it showed the iPad crushing a piano and an acoustic guitar, trying to make it seem like they were now the kings of art, not artists. So it was very offensive to the artistic community. And so it was so offensive, Apple had to apologize. You don't see that too much, a big corporate, entity apologizing for their marketing blunder, which was really, really embarrassing, I thought. But now Apple has to make it up to the artistic community. See, during the Steve Jobs era, there was no question Apple was the more artistic computer maker than, or I should say, all-in-one computer maker than any of its competition. It was all about the computer from an artist's perspective. okay, gave you tools that were seamless, that allowed you to create your art without this huge learning curve, whereas Microsoft Windows had a lot more complexities to it and more, you had to learn, you know, a lot more steps to make things happen, whereas Apple was more user-friendly, more artist-friendly, more about the artist, whereas Windows was more about Windows. And then after Steve Jobs died, Tim Cook took over Apple, and Tim Cook, it was just not the same. Right off the bat, there were problems. Like Tim Cook wanted to give a bunch of millions of dollars to the band U2 and allow their album to be a free download on everyone's computers through iTunes. Well, no one asked him to do that, and so he got a flood of complaints when that happened, especially from people who did not want U2 on their computer at all. And I thought it was an okay album. It was not as good as their 80s albums, and then I thought the band went downhill after that. After Achtung Baby in '91, they never, ever matched that in terms of artistic talent again. But still a good band, like a good live band, because I saw them after that, and they were still good at that. But Apple, they really chopped themselves up today by letting that commercial out to the public that basically belittled its users. You know, Apple's there to serve users. It's not supposed to be the other way around. People aren't supposed to be, you know, Apple's not supposed to be in control of art. It might give you tools to create art, but that was going a little too far, acting like they could just crush the piano, which has been around for centuries, or the guitar, which has been around for centuries. So I hope Apple learned its lesson. I personally only use Mac computing equipment. Like right now I'm recording this on an iPhone 14. But I think Apple's products have dropped in quality in terms of that artistic vision that Steve Jobs had. Apple doesn't come close to that anymore. They lost it, okay? They're the same as Microsoft as far as I'm concerned. They're about counting revenue, counting bodies, counting statistics. You know, they need to, if they want to get back to the credibility that Steve Jobs had, they need to do more for the artist. You know, they need to quit playing follow the loser with other corporations, copying letting them lead the way. Apple used to be a leader in, you know, software ideas, this new innovation. I can't say they've been that, you know, since Steve Jobs died. They've been more about marketing, regular marketing, and flair, you know, making their devices more, you know, fancy maybe, but that's not what I mean by artistic, serving the artistic community. It's more like, give us the tools that make our job at being creative more easy, and don't try to take over our jobs. Don't try to, you know, turn everything into AI is all that matters and human creators don't matter, because that's a loser's game. So I hope Apple gets this message to stop playing the loser's game. I know that AI is the winner's game in the stock market at this moment. All you have to do you could be a laundromat and say, hey, we're going AI, and maybe that'll help boost your stock price, because the market seems to gravitate toward AI companies in 2023 through 2024. That's just the period we're in now. We're not always going to be in this AI bubble. So the next thing that comes along, it'll just be called something else, and it'll be something else. You know, AI is probably not going away like some kind of fly-by-night trend. It's probably always going to be a backdrop in the evolving computing pop culture, but it's not going to be the number one driver of the markets always. So in that sense, we're in a bubble that's going to burn out. Right now, Nvidia is one of the hottest stocks on the stock market. That doesn't mean rush out and buy it. It just means that they've been a leader the past year, capitalizing on the AI trend. And they make supercomputers more for the gaming market. But who knows? They might take over the computing market if their supercomputers prove to be more powerful and resourceful than what the hardware companies are making. Yeah, Apple needs to get back on top of the idea of serving the artist community and the visionary people who crave innovation, like real innovation, not imitation innovation, which is actually more common among corporations. So just keep in mind that corporations don't last forever, and not everything they do is perfect. They do make big, embarrassing blunders from time to time. All of them have at one time or another. So it's good not to just go along with everything they do, because not everything they do is right. Otherwise, you know, Google would have been a lot further than it is now if their social media platform hadn't been blown out of the water. Remember Google Plus? Not too many people do, because it was a big failure. Remember Google Glass? That was another big failure. It's supposed to be this big innovation for the medical industry to wear these, you know, 3D goggles and have all this AI info at their fingertips. But they wanted to charge too much for it, and that's why it wasn't a hit. So corporate price gouging plays into this puzzle as well, you know. It doesn't always work. It has worked during this weird period of hyperinflation where everyone's just running up credit, borrowing as much as they can, and not afraid to spend as much as they can on things that they otherwise probably wouldn't buy. But because everyone's trying so hard to keep up with AI, now that we've blown past some other trends, you know, for a while it was the 5G was the big thing you had to be a part of. You know, there was all these other things too. Cloud computing was considered the, you know, rebellious, innovative thing, you know, last decade. You know, these things tech keeps evolving each decade, but it doesn't mean everything that comes out from the tech world is good. Sometimes the marketing is horrible, like Apple's promotion for the latest iPad. Sometimes the technology is horrible, like this iPhone 14 doesn't do exactly what I want it to do. Now it takes a lot longer to make things happen with this thing. You know, more steps than what the original iPhone did, which I still think was better than this thing. Even though it was only 4 gigs, this is like way more than that. And for my purposes, it just isn't as good. So anyway, I'm not against tech. I'm just for improvements in tech, and I'm tired of the silly illusions and marketing hype and all this over speculation on how great tech is when it flounders just as much as the radio industry. Yeah, the radio industry, just real quickly on that, you know, the 2 top radio companies. Well, iHeart just put out an earnings report that plunged their stock, making it lose, you know, over 1/3 of its value. So I'd hate to be a holder in that stock. That's failure when a stock melts down that much that quickly, like overnight. That means they put out a lousy earnings report that not only disappointed Wall Street, but anybody who wanted to be an investor in that company. Then you had the next biggest radio company, Odyssey. They filed bankruptcy back in February. So you got the top two in financial trouble. And they just don't seem to be run by the type of minds that Steve Jobs was. Steve Jobs was a trailblazer, okay? He created all kinds of new avenues for corporate innovation. Whereas, and he made that a good term. Whereas all these copycatters that say they're being innovative and aren't, and they say they're moving along with tech but aren't, and they say they are going to be making a lot more money in the future but haven't. They need to go back and see what Steve Jobs did, because he was brilliant, okay? Way more brilliant than Bill Gates, in my opinion. Because all Bill Gates did was basically pirate some software, licensed it to IBM, and end of story. Why did he have a relationship with IBM? Because he was born into a rich and connected family in which his mom knew the CEO of IBM. So you can start off, you know, on third base and then hit that home run. Or you could be more like Steve Jobs, who started off more at home plate. He was adopted, went through a middle-class family, but basically, you know, used ideas. He built his career on ideas more than being already born and connected. So, yeah, the people I respect are people like Steve Jobs. And we just haven't had a CEO like that since him. Anyone who claims they are the Steve Jobs of now is bluffing, okay? Because no one comes close. So that's going to do it for another Riverside chat. That ties in with Sacramento, because I'm doing this from Sacramento. And it ties in with the national picture, because everyone around the nation and the world has a computer, at least just about everyone who's able to watch this video. So we'll talk more about nature and technology. Those are two of my favorite topics and how they intertwine. So have a good time, and let's meet again back here at the American River.